Hello and very warm welcome to our X Night in March. My name is Thomas Zorbach, and together with my team from VM People, I'm your host for this evening. Month of March usually is a very special one for me. It's that time of the year when I'm in Berlin, where I am based. Actually, I would be in Austin, Texas, attend the South by Southwest conference. That's why I'm wearing this hat. Question from my side: who of you has been to South by before? Please raise your hand. Who was there? Who was in Austin, South by Southwest? Anybody? Steffi, of course, my teammate. Nobody else? Oh, they're in the back. Okay. For those of you who have no idea what it is, South by Southwest is a huge annual event combining music, film, and interactive. And for people who are into the digital sphere, like myself, Austin definitely is the place to be. People go there to attend keynotes, panel discussions, and to experience new technologies firsthand. At least that's what they truth is. Mostly it's about drinking lots of excellent beer. For me personally, there's still another reason to go there. In Austin, I usually have the pleasure to meet a longtime companion of mine and friend of our agency, Björn Ognibeni. Over the last 20 years, ever I thought I had discovered a new trending digital topic, I sooner or later found out that Björn had already identified it. There's a German saying, ich bin schon da. I'm already there. It's Björn's credo. Therefore, it's fair to say that Björn is one of the leading experts in Germany when it comes to digitalization. This year, it's like here can't meet for obvious reasons. On the one hand, this is pretty sad, if only because of the beer we can't drink together. But on the other hand, it's not all that tragic, at least if you follow Björn's conviction. He argues that to find out about the future of tech should no longer focus on the West. Instead, we should look to the East. Björn will be supported by a man who knows the Eastern Hemisphere very well because he has lived and worked in China for more than 10 years. His name is Andreas Hube, and he is Global VicePresident and head of the China Liaison Office, SAP, with a focus on technology and business development. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Björn and Andreas.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, hello everybody.
Yes, as Thomas already mentioned, I also would have been at South by right now. Is there? I couldn't see it from behind. Who had been to South by or would be there right now? Not that many. Okay, a few. Yeah, we want to, or together, want to tell you a little bit about Digital Asia tonight. But we want to start with a little disclaimer. But before we do that, because we don't know who is here right now, we would like to know who has no real connection to Asia right now. Yeah, like isn't from Asia, much think about it. Okay, and who is actually from an Asian country? Oh, okay, not that many. Because what we want to achieve today or tonight or wherever you are right now, it's tonight in Hamburg, we want to inspire you to think about Asia, yeah, especially if you haven't started it before. The thing is, Andreas and myself, we are very much focusing our work on China. And I'm running a startup that's called China Briefs that wants to educate Western executives about what they can learn from digital China. And Andreas, as Thomas already mentioned, used to live in China and works a lot with Chinese companies. But we don't want to say that Asia also means China. Yeah, China is just a part of Asia, and all the a lot of these cases that we are showing tonight are from China. That's mostly because of our background. Yeah, so every time you see something about China, also think that there are lots of other Asian countries that also have a lot of interesting cases. And maybe if you're from another Asian country, you could share some of these cases with us in the Q&A session afterwards. Yeah, so
just want to
let's
add
start.
maybe, yeah, just to add,
Yes?
maybe we really want to keep it interactive here. So if, as you just said, especially if there are some people from an Asian country, we really want to keep it here interactive and diverse. So as you said, the focus will be on China, but very happy to get any input from anybody else from Asia.
Yes. Because we in the West, usually when we look for new ideas about digital innovation, we used to look to San Francisco, Silicon Valley, the US, basically. But nowadays, we think it makes much more sense to also, at least also look to Shenzhen, to a city like Shenzhen. And that's usually counterintuitive to people who are not familiar with Asia, because we think especially China is one big copy machine. It just takes our ideas and turns them into cheap copies of this. And that used to be the case for a couple of years, but that stopped, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like this, because nowadays they invent new things, and that's what we want to share with you today. But before we do something about the future, let's talk about the history. We have here 5 inventions, and one of those inventions isn't from China. Does anyone want to take a guess which one is not from China? Liam, could you unmute him?
Es ist lustig, dass wir miteinander reden können.
Temporarily unmuted everyone just to get Christopher's answer.
Okay. Fortune cookie.
Fortune cookie.
Fortune
Cookie,
cookie.
did you say fortune cookie? Sorry, I should have broadcasted you there. Yeah, that would be my guess
Which
too.
is actually right. Yeah, but most of the people in the West have no idea that the fortune cookie is the only thing that wasn't invented in China. Yeah, compass, paper, movable types, and black powder is something that's also very obvious that most of the people here know. That was invented in China before it was available in the West. Yeah, and what I discovered myself after my first times in China is that Chinese people know a lot about 500 years of European history, while we don't know much about 5,000 years of Chinese history. And I used to tell this, call this asymmetric ignorance. That meaning that Asian people know a lot about us in the West, like European countries, American countries, but we don't know anything about Asia, China. We even don't know what we don't know. Yeah, and that's very true when it comes to COVID-19 and all the pandemic. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but a lot of people in Germany, where I live, have no idea how well the Asian countries, a lot of Asian countries, are doing during the pandemic. Yeah, they solved this problem a long time ago, while we are stumbling from one lockdown to the other. And here's another interesting thing. I think I don't have to add the company names here for these 3 people. Who doesn't recognize them? Yeah, I think everybody does. But let's show some Asian CEOs. Who knows them? Who could tell me which company they are heading? Yeah, probably most of you don't. The first one is the CEO of Foxconn, who probably built everything that we are using right now. Yeah, the company that builds all the iPhones. I'm not sure if they are also building Oculus Quests, but probably they do. The other one is the CEO of TSMC, which is actually the most important company of the world right now. Yeah, it's a Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company. something would happen to this company, basically all economies would stop because they are supplying all the semiconductors for all companies in the West, but also in China. And the last one is from Korea, South Korea, SK Hynix. They are more or less in the same position as TSMC, but for memory chips. Yeah, so really the most important company, way more important than Facebook, for example. If they would cease to exist, everyone would very suddenly feel it because the economy would basically collapse. Yeah, and that's something that we don't know. Another interesting thing that we don't know is if you don't spend a lot of time in Asia, is that Asia more or less already is living in the future. And that's something that we want to show you in 3 areas: everyday life, shopping, and democracy. Everyday life, we start with this. That's a picture that I took in Beijing 3 years ago, I think. And it shows you a motor scooter. Yeah, everybody who has been to Asia probably knows that it's extremely loud in every Asian city because of all the motor scooters. That's different in big Chinese cities because the motor scooters are already electric. And that for, like, Andreas, 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, no, at least, yeah.
Yeah.
Like 10 years
So,
at least when I was over there, yes.
And you see, they are not coming from Tesla. Yeah, they are coming from homegrown brands who are extremely cheap. It's something like this just would cost $200, $300, I think. And they are everywhere. Yeah, that's not something from the future. That's something that's totally common in every bigger Chinese city. Now, example that I show you here are 3D displays, LED displays over shopping malls. This one is from Chengdu. Yeah, pretty fun. If you go to YouTube and look for Chengdu LED 3D screen, something like this, you see lots of these movies. They're really fun. And the last one that I want to show you, or the next one, is a restaurant that's totally driven by robots. Everything that's happening there is done by robots. Yeah, they're doing the serving your beer, drinks, but they are also cooking. Of course, that is not something that's totally common, but it's an interesting proof of concept that you can actually run a restaurant fully on robots. The last example that I want to show you is something very mundane, a supermarket. Yeah, supermarkets are extremely interesting. Companies like Alibaba and JD are innovating like hell in this area. Like, for example, with an autonomous driving shopping cart that follows you around. And if you go to one of these Chinese supermarkets, you see a lot of digital innovation. Yeah, it's extremely interesting to see how they reinvented the system supermarket and how they were able to integrate online and offline sides of this business. Yeah, and everything that you see in the supermarkets can actually order online and it gets delivered to you. Does anyone who doesn't know it want to take a guess how long it takes until it's at your place? Liam, would you unmute people?
Yeah, I'll just unmute everyone again. 1 second. We'll get the people calling out then. There we go. How long do you think?
10 minutes, like gorilla.
I want to say 20 minutes.
Gorilla is doing something similar, but in a very small zone around a very small space. They are usually taking 20 minutes. Yeah, so 20 minutes is a pretty good guess. And usually a lot of stuff that you can order online from companies like or Alibaba. They are not only delivered by motor couriers, but also by robots. Yeah, these are autonomous driving delivery robots that you see in the streets of Beijing or Shanghai these days. Okay, so, and here we are at the second area that we want to show you today is shopping. And we jump back from the future to our world. If we look at online shopping in the West, did it really change for the last 20 years? We have seen 20 years of digital change. But if you look at how the online experience is of buying something online, it looks more or less like this, right? And it hasn't changed much since 2000. Yeah, if you look at Amazon in 2000, 2010, and 2020, it's more or less the same experience. And the advent of online apps, of mobile apps, haven't changed a lot. Yeah, the experience is still the same, meaning that actually experience is missing from what you're seeing there. Yeah, it's much fun. It's very efficient. It's easy to buy something, to get something, and it gets delivered faster today than it was done 20 years ago. But still, there's not much fun involved in buying online. And that's totally different in China. Yeah, in China, these are the screenshots of Alibaba's online shopping apps. You see them that they already radiate a lot of fun. Yeah, it's also very confusing for Western eyes, but it's totally a different experience buy something online. And one of the reasons is that live shopping is integrated into buying something online everywhere. Yeah, because live shopping is actually one of the biggest movements in digital China right now. And what you see here is various pictures from farmers who sell their produce online in live streams. Like the guy in the middle is a very famous peanut farmer who's selling his peanuts through live streams. Or here on that side here, you see a produce market, a farmers market, where farmers go to sell their products. And at their booth, what they're actually doing is they're streaming it and selling it also online. Yeah, so and that's also something that became very normal. Yeah, not something that it's out of the extraordinary, something totally new, but something that's actually very common these days. And here you see a very famous live streamer, Austin Lee, and you see what he's selling, lipstick.
妹妹，如果你想买它，一定要怎么样？第一个认清楚了啊！如果你接受不了那种不脱妆，你接受不了那种会拔干，你就不要买它，因为这就是你真的跟你男朋友亲嘴后不会掉，这就是你早上涂出去晚上回家还在嘴巴上的一支唇釉。来，所有女生看一下。
Yeah, and you see on the top that he's actually selling lipstick. Yeah, one evening in 2020, he had 140 million viewers on his live stream, and he sold nearly $500 million in revenue. And the interesting thing here is that online shopping, especially live streaming, is something that you do in China instead of watching something like Netflix. Yeah, online shopping is these days as much of an experience and fun as it's watching Netflix. And people in China, when they get home at evening at their dinner, they ask themselves, do I go online shopping or do I watch a movie on so they would watch, but that's a pretty interesting thing. I think nobody would consider to go to Amazon instead of Netflix. And the day that Austin Lee sold these hundreds of millions of lipsticks dollars, that was 11/11. Could you just raise your hand if you know what 11/11 means? Well, 11/11 is called, it started as a Singles Day. That was actually a promotion action by a campaign by Tmall, the brand a platform of Alibaba. And nowadays it's what they call the Global Shopping Festival. Yeah, it's something that really drives revenue. We see here the comparison for the 2015 to 2019, the revenue that Alibaba drew in just 24 hours during Singles Day compared to Thanksgiving weekend in the US. Yeah, and you see that Alibaba dwarfs basically what's happening in the US. And this is a short video about the highlights from 11/11 last year, just to give you an idea what 11/11 actually feels like. Okay, now compare this to Prime Day, yeah, which is something similar by Amazon. Yeah, I'm not sure if it came across how much fun it is to experience something like 11/11 in China, and how much fun is involved. And of course, good prices, low prices are also very much part of it, as much as it is on Prime Day. But the fun is also extremely important. And I don't think there's much fun involved in Prime Day.
Actually, just to comment on this, it's actually interesting in development. Actually, the 11/11, the Singles Day, basically is a concept, again, as we said, really developed basically in China and now basically taken on. We also have, like in Germany, US, the 11/11. So also, I think things like the Prime Day were actually kind of more or less following the idea. I wouldn't say copy it from China, but basically, I think we later in the discussion can talk about this also more kind of innovation we have in China, for example, or in Asia, which are taken over now and basically inspire further innovation here in the so-called Western world.
Mm-hmm. So the last part that I want to talk about is democracy. Yeah, that's something usually that is a little bit of a problem if you talk about especially China, because of course what's happening in mainland China is not really a good role model for us in the West. But there's also Taiwan, which is actually a little bit different than mainland China. And it's extremely interesting to study Taiwan, what's happening there, especially for us in the West who well, have some problems nowadays with the future prospects of our democracy. Yeah, especially with a lot of people living in a different reality that's not where you don't need a headset to join. Just look at Facebook, at your Facebook feed. And so we actually have much of a problem with our digital democracy and how digital channels are actually what our do to our democratic system. And if you look to Taiwan, it's pretty interesting because we can find there a lot of ideas that we could copy for our democracy. Yeah, one thing to start with is they have digital members for their cabinet members, where people under 35 help cabinet members from government to understand the digital world. Or in their schools, their goal is media literacy, is media competency, not literacy. Yeah, we want that our children can read and write. That's obviously something that they want to, but they also want to teach them how to identify fake news or to produce great content. Yeah, so media competency is a goal there. That's something that I'm not sure where you are coming from, but in Germany, we are always happy that in the school even has a computer. And then the government, when they do about communications, they have two kind of communication people. They have press officers. They obviously talk to the press. That's something that we obviously also have. But they also have participation officers, and they are talking to hashtags, yeah, to memes, to stuff that's happening online. And last thing is, they are fighting memes, fake news with memes, yeah, because they say that humor spreads much faster than hate. Well, that's, I think, a pretty interesting idea. And all this comes from a very interesting podcast that I saw a couple of weeks ago or heard with Audrey Tang. That's the woman here on the site. That's the digital minister of the right now Taiwanese government. Yeah, and in this podcast, she also describes a lot of other ideas that they had to use digital tools to enhance the democracy. Like, for example, government.0. All the hashtags, the domains for government websites end with gov.tw. And a hacker group started gov with 0 in the middle .tw to post new websites as a complement to the government one, because the government one usually was pretty bad, and they tried to enhance this with their own version that was much better, and that became a real movement. So the Gov0 movement actually is trying to enhance all the government services on their own sites. Then they have really interesting participation websites where you can post new ideas, where they ask people to participate in new initiatives to create new laws and stuff like this. New laws and regulations are actually put into sandboxes and tried out for a year, a little bit like a development process where they see if this works or not, and if it does, it gets into the real system. If not, they get rid of it. And they have something that's pretty interesting. It's a presidential hackathon every year for a specific subject, where everybody can, on a specific topic, where everybody can participate and post its own ideas and try to find real solutions. That's something that we also have in the West, but usually these are only PR things, yeah, where nothing really comes out of it. These presidential hackathons really produce real solutions, and they are actually used then afterwards. Yeah, and all this are very interesting ideas. So if we study them, it would help us to solve a lot of problems in our democracies as well. So to sum this up, we are always talking about copying, but actually what Asians are doing when they look at the stuff that we are doing, which they like, and they're copying it, what they are doing is learning. Yeah, they are doing their own versions afterwards, which are nowadays very often much better than ours. And the question that we should start asking ourselves is what I can learn from Digital Asia. Yeah, what is there that I could find that's interesting, that can help me, inspire me for my work here? Yeah, and that's what we wanted to share with you as a start to a conversation.
Maybe let me comment on the last point, because the one thing which we haven't really covered here was very much the aspect of, we talked a lot about the B2C aspect, but the big portion is, for sure also B2B, like business to business area. And just to pick up the last point you made in terms of copying versus learning, let me share you an experience. I think you all are familiar with the concept of Industry 4.0, right? It's actually a concept which kind of was coined by several German thought leaders, including Professor Henning Kagermann, former CEO of SAP, and Professor Walster from the German Institute of Artificial Intelligence, who basically brought up this concept of Industry 4.0. And announced it in 2011. I think it was around 2011, 2012. It was very much promoted, and it became like a kind of German branded thing. So this got very popular again in China, and for sure SAP is one of the companies who is very much driving basically to develop solution around to Industry 4.0 to be able to actually realize the values of Industry 4.0. And what we saw is at that time, there's this very big industrial fair, the Hanover Industrial Fair. It's one of the largest, if not the largest industrial fair in the world, that we had massive amounts of Chinese delegations coming and people asking questions like, what is Industry 4.0? How can I get there? And there was really basic knowledge missing. If you then look year by year, basically, the questions got differently. You really saw they're looking into concept and they started to apply. And I think this is also the point what you saw in those short videos. I mean, it all looks very, how to say, fancy, very innovative. Not every company is like this, but there are indeed companies who basically are, early adapters of this technology who are also very eager to try out, which is also, I think, a phenomenon which we can discuss, especially also what I learned and experienced in China, that you have this concept of trial and error, which is very much contrary to the concept which we have in Germany. You try to engineer, optimize everything, and then once you're sure you really have a solution, you really can succeed, you try it out. In China, you have a lot of trial and error, and in this way, we saw them year by year actually advancing. And finally, to close the story, basically 2 years ago, one of the inventor, Professor Henning Kagermann of Industry 4.0, standing in front of the produced Industry 4.0 based manufacturing line, Hanover Fair, and said, this is Industry 4.0 at its best. And this was not because of learning, copying, very much about learning and studying hard. So, to complete the point here.
So, thank you very much, Björn. Thanks very much, Andreas. And please give a very warm applause for our speakers. I would like to open the Q&A session with a question from my side. You already went in that direction, Andreas. Me, as a German, I'm pretty much frustrated, not only due to the Corona situation and that we all realize how difficult it is if you are not able to innovate in a way. We are so far behind in terms of the digital transformation. But why is it exactly, what is in the culture, in the Asian, especially in the Chinese culture, that they are able to innovate?
Yeah, let me maybe try to answer, and
yes.
Feel free for sure, Björn, to comment on this. I think one of the aspects is really this aspect. I mean, you have this learning culture overall. Then some people say like it's an honor to copy the master. I won't go in this direction. I think basically based on my personal experience, it's very much what I also said earlier. People are willing to try out. It's really by trial and error, trying something out, looking at the concept, seeing how does it work in China, and failing also many times. So I think there's a willingness to fail as well, but also to succeed. And I have to say, I also saw cases. I mean, you showed the brilliant cases here which were successful. I also saw when I once went on a tour through South China, and I once went through an manufacturing site where with Professor Kagermann back then together, this was a couple of years back, where they proudly produced a set of robotic production lines or production line with robots there. This had nothing really to do with Industry 4.0. So you could really say they copied, but they applied the wrong thinking here. And a year later, when we visited, basically, you saw that they got it. So this is the point. I would like to make one other thing in terms of, especially in the area of digitalization, which is key. And again, I can just refer to my experience here in China. You should not underestimate for sure also the environment which you are working and living in. Basically, you have actually an environment. You have the infrastructure there, which is also, and this I have to admit, very much driven by the government. I mean, you have a government which is very much driving the digital agenda for whatever purposes, but basically the positive outcome is here that you actually have availability of the internet everywhere. You can actually go to smart manufacturing aspect, and this is definitely one further point. You also have special support for startups in China. I think all of those factors, are adding to the point in terms of supporting innovation.
Thank you. So I guess now would be the right time.
Yeah, just to let everyone know, the raise hand feature is now available. So if you have any questions, just hit the raise hand and we'll get around to you. We do have one question queued up from Thomas H. Who's at the front there, I believe. So I'm just going to put you on air now and give you the megaphones. We can all hear and see you. Here you go, Thomas.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
I'm a teacher, and I'm a teacher at a vocational school. And we do have an Industry 4.0 model at our school. We try to teach our students. The really big thing, if you talk to companies, is where are the young people, the youth of today? How can we prepare them for the world of tomorrow, for digitalization, for Industry 4.0? And there's a big gap between what the companies need and what schools or education systems now can provide. And it's really, really hard to overcome that gap. So how's Asia, how's China doing that? That they get the people they need to get the digitalization or the project you showed us on the run, that they have the workforce they need, which we, I don't know, we lack, I think. So it's going to be really interesting how we develop our education system to conquer those ideas or concepts from Asia. Thomas out.
Yeah. If I just may comment on this, because it's a very interesting point you mentioned, which actually ties back to another, I would say, German invention, which is very popular in China, which is the dual education system. So basically what you're doing, this whole concept is something which is really, really appreciated and utilized in China. And especially I know that there are many initiatives, especially around education, around Industry 4.0, that's massively supported. I mean, we, again, not making advertising, but we from SAP are and several also government funded from both sides, actually both government funded projects basically where we build up training courses for industry to enable basically Industry 4.0. And I know this is a big topic, but you can go in specific, how to say, specific scenarios, specific areas, specific industries. But there's, let's put it, at least what we can see, I'm not sure whether they're ready, but at least they're doing a lot of investment. I mean, also the government, especially on the city, even on the district or industrial park level, there are dedicated industry parks for like Industry 4.0. There's massive investment happening. And I think also scholars like you from Germany are highly basically regarded and doing a lot of teaching around Industry 4.0. So I think at least what, based on my experience, I can say that the generation is made ready. And you start even earlier, and Björn, you mentioned it, and I think we all went through this, who are parents, we went through this during this pandemic. I think we clearly saw in terms of, at least for the students in Germany, how badly we were prepared basically for the pandemic in terms of being able to educate children in the digital classroom. This was not an issue in China, honestly, because I have a lot of colleagues and friends basically, so I know it from personal experience. It was a shock, like 2 weeks maybe, but then they really got, and everything was working very well. So basically, I think, which was also very much driven on the own initiative. So it's not only government mandated, but also schools had the initiative, they had the authority to make decisions, to do the investments. And basically, I think from that perspective, they were very much, to say, prepared. I wouldn't say for sure. There are many, many things actually we can do in the education sector to share further, to also, how to say, help China further. There are a lot of things basically they would like to learn from us. But I think from a technical perspective, at least they have the basis there.
Okay.
Just one thing perhaps to add, it's also a numbers game, right? Yeah, there are way more people graduating from university or schools, like millions of or hundreds of thousands, I don't know, engineers graduating from universities every year. So that's also a factor. Yeah. Maybe they don't have more clever people than us percentage-wise, but if they have the same percentage, they are way more. So that's probably also a very important factor.
Just on this one again, for sure. Sorry. Asia, but again, change and learn from our way of teaching. I think the aspect that you say, for example, in areas like, I know we have some experts here maybe we can invite them in to comment, like where it starts in the areas of creativity, invention, like design thinking, those kind of approaches. We had many challenges also from our side, basically, to introduce this basically in China, to have this accepted by engineers and so on. But over the time, they actually adopted the concept, and you really could say that this improved their overall learning. So I think there's a lot what we can still share in this way and work together.
Okay, hope that answered the question for you. Again, thanks for the question. We have another question from, we did have another question, but the hand has gone down. Saraki, who is here? Saraki, is it? Do you still have a question, or did you put your hand up accidentally? Give me a sad face if you put your hand up accidentally. Okay, no. So yeah, don't be shy. Any other questions? There are no stupid questions. Just feel free to hit that raise hand button, and we'll round to you. Well, you did a very good job with your presentation. No question.
Yeah, we had them all. I think we had 2 from Asian countries, right? Are they still here?
Yeah, do we still have people who are from Asia in the
So
house?
maybe you want to share your perspective?
Yeah, if you want to share your perspective, can't even say it, then just hit the raise hand button and I'll open up your microphone for you. Oh, we got everyone's a bit shy today, I think. Okay.
I guess Christopher maybe wanted to say something. Come on.
We had. Yeah. Okay.
Well, let me just broadcast you there, Christopher. 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. 1 second. I got it here. Can you raise your hand for me, Christopher, just so I can find you quicker?
On the top of the stairs.
Okay.
Yes.
There you go. Okay. There you go. Cast it now.
Okay. Yeah, great examples also from the Taiwanese democracy. Can you explain us a little bit about this social credit system in China? This is kind of the dark side of the digitalization. There are many great innovative things, but also this social credit system, we don't know much about it, but it's something where I'm afraid of a little bit, but maybe you can tell us more about this.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the interesting aspects. Nobody in Germany knows a lot about China, but everybody knows that there is this universal social credit system that every Chinese citizen assigns a certain score to him. The thing is, nobody in China knows about this. It's actually not true. It's not there. It's government initiatives. It's tried out in all different cities and provinces in different ways. But right now, there is no real comprehensive social credit system, at least not in the way that we are talking about it. Yeah, it's something that probably might come, that nobody right now knows what's happening there. There are aspects that are already in place in certain cities. And there are also things like a blacklist for somebody who can't buy train tickets or can't fly planes because, for example, he owes money. Yeah, so that's something that's also happening there. But a universal social credit system isn't there right now. What's there? That's something that's pretty interesting, is the health code. That you have to use your mobile, you get a green QR code, and it's checked everywhere if you are free of COVID. And if there's some reason for the system to say you're orange, you're or danger, or you're infected, then you get a red code and you can't access anything. That's thing that right now is only used for COVID, and there are also a lot of drawbacks, and that's something that might stay in place even if the virus is long gone. That's something that I would be afraid of right now. You want to add something?
Yeah, maybe just to add on, I think this is even you're kind of touching on a much bigger topic here in terms of like, because the social credit system for sure is very much only working with on a big databases basically. So the question is the utilization of data. I mean, the collection of data, the storage, and the utilization of data. And this, I think, yeah, it's a very challenging discussion this way. I think this is basically where comes a little bit of a clash of cultures in this way, because I think we in Germany at least the very, based on our history, very sensitive, attitude with regards to handling data. We are used that people are, spying in each other, collecting data, and then using it basically for suppression, etc. But in China, basically, I think many times it's not that everybody is completely happy with the way our data is used, but basically, in terms of utilization, people see the comfort. In terms of they see the advantage in terms of providing data and having basically the benefit of central databases, of utilizing data, collection of data everywhere, in terms of be it like comfort by shopping, be it also security purposes. I mean, this is another thing. If you look into, there's always this claim in terms of China has like so many, the world's largest amount of surveillance cameras and storing data. There's also many, and I know from my own friends and family, basically there's also a certain security feeling around it. So basically there are always two sides of a story. But I think if you come from our Western mindset, for sure, we have, personally myself as well, we have big challenges in terms of how are my data used and basically how they're potentially used to punitive measurements.
First, one thing from Andre Tang. That's a thought that I thought is pretty interesting. What the basic difference is between mainland China and the approach Taiwan chooses. And that's Taiwan wants to make the government as transparent as possible. And in China, the government tries to make the citizens as transparent as possible. Yeah, that's something that also I think shows pretty good the approach that you see in these different areas.
Okay, I think we have a question, Christopher. I think we have another one from Thomas H again. So let me just open up your microphone for you. There we go. We can hear you now.
I just want to say we had already 2 delegations from China in our school, and they offered us a lot of money to come to China and do the dual system, as you mentioned. That's all.
Right. Yeah, well, which is a good point in terms of, again, just from experience, we had in 2019 around 100 delegations coming to 2 of our SAP locations, basically. So it's kept us really, really busy. And there was so much, you might think in the good old days they came over for tourist purposes and just enjoy Germany, but this has completely changed. They're really prepared, they're really learning, and especially also interesting, and this is maybe another point, if we have also a lot of many government delegations. The way how they prepare for those trips, the way how they in the evening sit there basically to compare notes, do their homework, raise reports. Sometimes we get the final report and the results of their study trip. You're really amazed. In terms of really, they really take it extremely seriously. You can feel next time they come, all of those things which you told them basically, they somehow incorporated this and they built up on this one. So there, I have to say again, stressing the point Björn made, that it's really very much about learning and applying, not only not applying one-to-one, but really also looking into how does it really apply to China. Let me give you an example. We talked about earlier about Industry 4.0. Many people then say, okay, the China corresponding initiative is Zhongguo Zhejiao, is May 2025, which is not true actually, because 2025 goes much broader in terms of it really goes actually further the scope of whereas Industry 4.0 very much looks into smart manufacturing and the shop floor this goes basically beyond the supply chain. For sure, there's also overall agenda behind this, which was heavily criticized in Western countries, especially because China clearly laid out their full industrial policy. They really said, okay, in those industries, we want to apply this, we want to reach those and those targets by then, which really scared many of us because we are not used to having targets and really clear policy like this. So this scared many people off. This is also why they changed the narrative now. You don't hear China 2025 in an official narrative of the government anymore. Now it's very much they're referring more to the term of industrial Internet of Things, which we also use here and there, but it has a special meaning there. Just to stress your point again, they're coming, they're learning, they're investing. They're also very much acquiring and investing in getting talent over to China. There's a huge amount of also scientific exchange, which is also sometimes heavily criticized, like back in Germany, like should we tell them everything? Because people are getting afraid that they're really, again, not copy, but learn everything from us. So it's a very good point, yeah.
Thank you for the questions. Do we have any other questions? The raise hand feature is if you've just come in the room as well. The question might be what was happening, what was on the screen. Any questions, just hit the raise hand button. No, I can always open up the room and just unmute everyone's mic. Just let me know when you want me to do that.
Fine.
There's a question up there again, Christopher.
Okay, yeah, it's just popped up in the panel. There you go, your megaphone is on.
Okay, yeah. Do you have some app recommendations for us for cool Chinese apps? So when I was working in China, I learned that they do everything with WeChat, and they pay with WeChat. They pay the rent. They date with it. They do everything, and but it's not big in Europe, this app. But do you have other recommendations? Stuff.
Yeah, one thing that I usually recommend. Can you hear me? Is that working? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can.
One thing that I usually recommend is the AliExpress app from Alibaba. That's basically a Chinese shopping app that's available in Western app stores that gives you a little bit of the Chinese experience if you want to try it out. That's something that I would recommend. You could also download WeChat, but actually all the cool, interesting features are not available in the West, so you won't experience much there except a chat client that you can nobody chat with if you don't know anyone from China. Anything else, Andreas, that you would recommend?
Let's put it like this. If your question is, if you plan to go to China, I think WeChat is essential. So basically, for sure, you're still out, even if you're in China, you're challenged. I mean, WeChat is available in any kind of language, I guess, right now, but you're challenged for sure with certain restrictions around payment functions and so on. If you don't have like a Chinese credit card or Chinese bank account, it's very hard to use. I think there are certain initiatives now for foreigners that here and there can use it. But definitely, I mean, we use, even in Germany, I think, let's face it, 30 to 40% even of business-related communication, sure, non-sensitive business communication, is doing via WeChat. And it's actually really interesting these days. You all know, like in Asia, I think you can generalize this, business cards are a big thing, right? You hand over business cards and you those intercultural classes, where they teach you about China. Yeah, you have to take your business card in two hands and hand it over. Nobody does this anymore. Not only that they don't give business cards, but for sure they give business cards. But the real thing is what you want to get is you want to get somebody's WeChat contact. So basically, if you give a speech or people come with their WeChat account and they ask because you are connected. This is the way how you stay connected. I personally must say I use it extensively for business purposes because many people, for sure, again, WeChat is not. It's not like as you also just correctly said. It's actually one app to address everything. You have basically Facebook features, all this what you do. Post your stories like this, which you call moments in WeChat. Basically, you have to do this all via WeChat. But you can find out a lot of stuff about your new contact if they share those moments. It's actually from a good old-fashioned CRM perspective, it's very, very helpful basically to learn about from a business perspective. And it's a very, I would say, this is always between a phone call and WhatsApp. It's not different, very different, but between a phone call and an email. And WeChat is, people are constantly on WeChat. And even if you need to access like certain people of a political ranking, if you have their really private, their WeChat account, you can really get things done. So I think this is definitely, for me personally, the most important app in China. Another thing for sure, if you go to travel to China, there's this company called T-Trip. I think you all know this, and they have a Western version which is called Trip.com. They actually have an app which is working very fine, even in English in China, and which helps you even to buy train tickets, which sounds very simple, but buying train tickets in China can be here and there a challenge. So basically, if you go traveling, I am always travel with Trip.com, which is
Great. Okay. Thanks for the question again, Christopher. Anyone else got any more questions? I'm gonna have to remember the names of these applications because I'm gonna have a look at them afterwards. Sorry, did you say WeChat is only available in China? Is it available to use here?
No, you can download it from a Western app store.
Okay.
But the problem is that the core of WeChat are mini apps. That's where all the different applications are that Chinese people use. And it's actually deactivated if you download the Western version. You have to be in China or you have to scan a QR code to activate it. So if you just download it tonight from the App Store, you won't see it. You won't see the wallet where all the payment functions are, and you won't see the mini app function where all the mini apps are. You only see the chat function.
So just the basic sort of functionality. Okay.
Yeah.
basic, yeah.
But it's there. It's the same program. So if you scan, for example, a QR code from a mini app, it suddenly appears in your Western WeChat app, and then the entry for mini apps is there. So it's not a different program. It's just deactivated.
Okay. So you were saying, sorry, no other questions at the moment, so I'm asking some now. But you were saying about people speaking to sort of prominent figures and potentially sort of politicians on WeChat. Is that, as you said, through scanning their code and actually sort of if you're meeting them for networking?
I mean, there are several ways to get it, in terms of, it's a little bit, well, you can find people via their WeChat ID, which in the recent years became very cumbersome because it's just, I think, over generated code, a randomly generated code. Back then, you actually could really give you a name, a certain name, whatever. Then you can do at this point way numbers. So basically, many, and I know people in China still won't deactivate this function. So if you know their mobile phone number, you can actually find contact. That doesn't mean that you automatically can add them. I think it's different. Like in WhatsApp, for example, you have the contact number, basically can directly chat. Here you always have to ask for permission. I think one of the most popular ways is for sure to show your QR code. So many times actually when you give presentations at the end, you don't put your email address, you just put your QR code there. After the presentation, you would see like that about 20, 30 people have added you there, and you still have to accept. And this is a funny thing, as I just said. It's like if you go to a person in terms of after a speech, for example, and basically ask them to, they always ask ideally that they scan your code, and they still wait there until you actually have approved the code. So they're really, otherwise you just hold the QR code and you never approved them. People are really like standing there like, oh, can you please approve? It's sometimes really have this pile of people then basically who are standing around you and really wait, get the approval, and then for sure it's up to you. You still can block them as like in every other app, but this is really a key way of communicate now.
Something that's also fun is that people don't use email. And the result is that you very often get official email from if they want to communicate with someone in West, they send me an email if they don't have my WeChat contact. But that comes from something like Hotmail.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get an official email from a government person or from a high-ranking company official, and he sends it through an Hotmail service. Yeah, something similar. That's totally normal. It's also on the business cards you see email addresses from a Hotmail-like service because nobody cares about email. It's just there.
Yeah, I was going to say it's something that I use less and less. I tend to get people to add me on any instant messaging, any platform, and they can instant message me because emails are often overlooked. So. Okay, well, Q&A is closed now. So what I'm going to do is thank both of you for answering all those questions as well, and my questions. Yeah, we've got some claps.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Some emojis.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Björn. Thanks again, Andreas, for sharing your thoughts, for sharing your insights, your expertise. Thanks for being here tonight here at Area X, at our X night. I guess the two of you would stay here a little bit longer so that people can get in touch with you either in front of the stage or in the basement or at the campfire. And thank you very much for coming. Thank you to our audience. This is the end of our X talk, but it's not the end of the X night. I'd really recommend that you all be back at 10 o'clock, where we have X Beats, which is our live DJ set featuring DJ Illuminati. And Liam, would you recommend that people would come? What's your opinion? I guess you know her, right?
Yeah, definitely. I love listening to Natasha's sets or DJ Illuminati. I gave away her real name, I know. But yeah, some great and the last few that I've attended as well. Really enjoyed it. And we had some incredible dance moves last time as well. So you've got to try and beat some of the dance moves I saw. There was a lot of people sweating and out of breath by the end of it. So
would be really great to see your dance moves in about 45 minutes, and also your dance moves, Björn, Andreas. I really thank you very much. And just one last remark from my side. Next X Talk, next X Night will be on April 8th. This then would be on storytelling, especially in VR in combination with theater. So if you're interested in that, please be back. And as for now, stay safe and see you in like 45 minutes. You're back in Area X. Thank you.